know.
MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade.
Let's talk about Monday Night Raw, even though I don't really want to, if we're being honest. This show was pretty pedestrian. And the booking style of Triple H, which is to just book big matches, which is fine, but sometimes there needs to be more to it than that. These shows are incredibly mid because show after show passes with nothing happening. There's very little in the way of character development. There's almost certainly no stakes. The stakes are almost never raised. And look at Saturday night's main event, for instance. There's only one title match on the entire show, right? So you booked this big card that's supposed to be the competition to AEW's All In show, which is what, Meltzer and everybody's running around saying, oh, they're trying to compete with All In, which maybe that's the point. But they're not trying very hard. Yeah, they put Randy Orton on the show, but his matches with Drew McIntyre is a normal match. Seth Rollins and LA Knight is a normal match. The only thing abnormal about the show is Goldberg versus Gunther. You would think if somebody was really trying to compete, they would actually stack the show with some stuff that people might actually want to see. Or try to do something that could be unique for that particular show. But Saturday night's main event is just another episode of Raw or another episode of SmackDown just on Saturday. And so that's not really the issue. And Evolution is not on the same day as All In, so it doesn't really matter. But that's the big show, is Evolution. And people are very concerned about the ticket sales of Evolution. I've already talked about this. So let's pivot to something that I didn't talk about. And it came into my mind from when I read this tweet from Steve Carrier. Steve Carrier, for those of you who don't know, he's the editor, quote unquote, of Ringside News. And he pretty much runs the Twitter account. So he tweeted out this comment. I think when Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss were all taking their 2-year off, we all moved on. We want Tiffany, Blake, Stephanie, Roxanne, Grace, and Julia now. Now, this is an interesting comment because I'm thinking about, hey, they were pushing a bunch of girls. Stephanie Vaquero was getting a huge push. She's not featured at all on Evolution. She's going to be one of the many faces in the Battle Royal. They put so much emphasis on Julia over the last couple of weeks, even just put the U.S. title on her. She's not going to be featured at all on Evolution. She's just going to be another face probably in that Battle Royal. They just hired Mariah May, a.k.a. Blake Monroe, from AEW. To my knowledge, she's not going to be on this card at all unless she's just going to be, again, another face in that Battle Royal. But you do have spot for Alexa Bliss and Charlotte, and they throwing Nikki Bella in the Battle Royal now too. I'm guessing that was not the original idea with her. So you do start asking the questions though. Like, have we moved on from some of the girls from a couple of years ago that they're putting focus on? Like, everybody's talking about Trish Stratus and, why they keep digging in the bag to get Trish Stratus and digging in the mothballs to get Nikki Bella. But, there were other girls that were doing something. Zelina Vega was a champion for a long time this year. She's got no feature at all on this show. In fact, I haven't seen Zelina since she lost the title. And that becomes a recurring issue of why people can't get over or stay over in modern WWE. When you look at the build for Evolution on this show, in the first match, they had Kairi Sane versus Roxanne Perez. The match didn't have the chemistry you would have hoped. It was just a weird thing that was going on, but Kairi Sane ended up winning the match. Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez ended up jumping Kairi Sane. Of course, Asuka makes the save. And then it's announced that Asuka and Kairi Sane will be Raw's team in the Fatal 4-Way match, which again feels very thrown together. So, and then they just told us that the NXT tag team is going to be Zarya and Sol Ruka. I'm fine with Zarya and Sol Ruka. The problem I have here is they just lost to Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley. And Sol Ruka is a champion on NXT. She's a double champion, actually, because she's the Speed Women's Champion, too. And you don't put any emphasis on her on the Evolution show. Like, I understand everybody can't be featured. You know? I'm saying that you could do more than you are doing. The big problem here is that is a lack of story element. They made it seem like the Kabuki Warriors and Damage Control is all over. That seemed like that was the case when Asuka came back. She was done with the Damage Control thing, and because remember they did the segment between her and Io, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no Damage Control. Who cares about Damage Control?" Now she's best friends with Kairi again. They back to being the Kabuki Warriors, and they back to being silly, and you know everybody loves the Kabuki Warriors. Like I'm pretty sure there's some Japanese guy out there who is upset about Asuka singing and dancing because minstrels, right? Everybody's a minstrel. You have a sense of humor in wrestling. It's a minstrel show, but we go from there to the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. Now, this is what features who is probably the biggest women's star on the roster. That's Becky Lynch. They did a segment with Bayley, Lyra Valkyria, and Becky Lynch where they had a 3-person argument, which almost never goes well because 3 people arguing and they're arguing back and forth amongst each other. It's easy for these people to get things all tied up. And then you have 2 baby faces and a heel. And then you really just kind of have a mess at that point. Becky Lynch called them both losers who lost to each other. Neither one of them could beat the other one. Which, I mean, she got a point. She feels like she should be able to pick her own opponent because Tiffany and Io got to pick their own opponents. Again, solid enough point. She says that she thinks that these 2 are in cahoots, which is, of course, delusion. Bayley thinks she should be an Intercontinental Champion, and that Lyra needs to get over their partnership. She doesn't need friends. She only needs that title. Lyra says that she has to save this women's Intercontinental title from these 2 disappointments. And they ended up brawling and getting into a fight. It was a very mid, I guess you could say, segment. Most people thought it was really bad. Some people thought it was good. I don't like triple threat matches, and I don't like triple threat arguments. I will say this, the card needs this match to have more heat than it has, however. And this is one of the 2 matches, I guess you could say, along with Jade Cargill and Naomi, where they put a lot of emphasis on those matches, and they stretch back to WrestleMania. Most of the stuff that they put on this Evolution show is just slapdash on the show to cover up injuries because Bianca is out and Liv is out and stuff like that. But this seemed like is what they wanted it to be, and it's still not strong enough. They probably should have just left it as Bayley and Becky one-on-one. But they wanted to try to make Lyra a thing, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It just is what it is. She's not a strong promo, however. She still comes across like a fan in the ring. So she has to build herself up, and I'm not sure Triple H is really going to force her to flex her muscle or spread her wings, pun included. But I don't see how this has increased interest in Evolution at all. I just don't see how this has increased interest. When Rhea Ripley and Io Sky had 1 segment, and then they didn't feature each other at all since. They have not talked to each other. There was no sit-down conversation between the 2 of them. There has been nothing Nothing in the way of build outside of, I want to fight Rhea Ripley. Well, I want to fight you too. And then that's it. They just both went to their neutral corners, and that's all we got. And now we have to try to sell tickets based off this. Rhea Ripley is allegedly the biggest star in the women's division, and she's in a heatless match that is likely going to be the main event. This doesn't make sense for you to do this. They brought back Nikki Bella. Now, this is, of course, beyond their control. But they went through this whole thing by giving Nikki Bella a promo. She said she came to pay her respects, and then Liv Morgan attacked her. But since then, she now has a fire lit in her belly. She wants to prove that she's as good as she's always been, and prove to her fans and prove it to her son. So she's going to enter the Battle Royal. They didn't even have a plan B. It was just kind of like, oh, well, plan A is down, Battle Royal, I guess. It's weird because you have all these women who are going to be in the Battle Royal. They could have talked to each other. That's the one thing that, WWE 5 or 6 years ago, it would have been multiple people in the ring talking about winning the Battle Royal. They'd have took some chunks out of each other verbally. There might have been a match. You get to see who's going to be in it. You got to tease some stuff. Now it's just backstage segments and pre-tape promos. And it's like, okay. I'm not sure anybody's super excited for Nikki Bella anyway. And then you put her in a Battle Royal. It's just... but, of course, the biggest crime here is that Stephanie Vaquer, who, they were pushing extremely heavily in the early part of June, is now working main event against Ivy Nile, and she's not featured on Raw. Well, there was a short vignette that was about 30 seconds. That's it. That's not helping anybody. That's not getting her over. So out of the entire show of Evolution that you're forcing people to pay money to go see, not necessarily on Peacock, but you want people to come into the building, you built up one match with the characters actually interacting. The rest is pre-tape promo segments. One. It's not good. And this has become a recurring theme because it's just as bad with Saturday Night's Main Event. Saturday Night's Main Event is set to, I think, host 10,000 people thereabouts for Saturday Night's Main Event. This is the second time Goldberg and Gunther have come into contact with one another. Goldberg got a massive pop when he came out. Absolutely ridiculous pop. He was driving a muscle car. He came across like the coolest motherfucker in the world. He's like 60 years old. And he's the coolest guy on the show. He's driving his own car. It's a muscle car too. It's like something out of Bullet that you want to see Steve McQueen drive. He's big. He's jacked. He goes to the gym. He's just, he walks a little weird because he's 60. He comes in. Gunther is literally like half this man's age. And Goldberg believably knocks him on his ass. And I'm just looking at this thing like, if the idea is Goldberg is old and washed, and he's not going to last very long against Gunther, that might make sense in terms of storyline for wrestling, but making Goldberg the coolest motherfucker on your show, where he gets the biggest pop on the show, one of the biggest pops. I think, Penta got a pretty big pop, and people really seem to like Cross. But it's pretty insane to me that they wouldn't lean more into this thing. Or, let's say, Goldberg don't want to be there every week. Okay, fine. Then there should be more emphasis on the Seth Rollins LA Knight thing, right? The LA Knight's getting the crowd behind him. They decided to have a match that I kind of enjoyed this match, the Seth Rollins versus Penta contest. And they had a short promo for LA Knight earlier. And there's no talk of maybe LA Knight trying to get that briefcase away from Seth Rollins, or Seth Rollins putting the briefcase on the line because of LA Knight. No, there's nothing of that sort. He just wants to fight him. So they're going to fight each other. But first, Seth Rollins is going to fight Penta. And it was a solid match. It was pretty good. It was one of the few things I watched all the way through. Then after the match, of course, Rollins won, of course. He cheated and won with the stomp. Then they attacked him, which they usually do. Then LA Knight attacks from behind, hits the BFT, and runs before the two Brons can get in the ring and do anything. This has been the entirety of the build-up between these two guys. It's been promo segments back and forth, and then the occasional attack from behind. LA Knight is not being elevated here. 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure which one it was, maybe it's 2 years ago, he was in a feud with Bray Wyatt, right? And it looked like, he was off to a great start because Bray Wyatt is a top guy. Okay, that was a good start. I mean, the matches weren't great, but it was a good position for him. Then a year or two later, he's in the ring with Roman Reigns. Okay. He's in the ring with, what's that douchebag's name? Logan Paul. Now he's in the ring with Seth Rollins. But here's the issue. He doesn't win any of these matches. He just goes in there and I hate to use the word jobber to the stars, but nobody believes that LA Knight can win. And winning for LA Knight means what anyway? Because there's nothing on the line. There's no stakes. And there's very little heat. But the big issue is this is a TV program for Rollins. Rollins' real feuds are with Punk and Roman. Neither one of them are on TV currently. So he's going to feud with LA Knight on television. This means LA Knight doesn't have a shot in hell of making SummerSlam versus Seth Rollins, or wrestling at Clash at Paris against Seth Rollins, or anywhere else. So it's Seth Rollins is going to put on his boots to work this mid-carder, and then as soon as he stomps him and pins him, CM Punk's music is going to play, and then we're going to get to something that actually matters. And that's a problem. Again, LA Knight should not be in that position. But he is. Because they're booking so many shows at once that these guys you can't have all of these guys wrestling each other constantly all the time. Right? But you can do segments, you can do promos, you can raise stakes, you can do these different things, these little things that you can do. And it will require for you probably to chop some of these matches down. They don't need to be 10 minutes apiece. Right? And you can not do matches that don't matter, that don't really add anything to your show, which we'll talk about in a second. But let's talk about Bron Breakker real quick, because they stopped his momentum. He was the Intercontinental Champion. He was a big deal. He was becoming a big deal. And they put him in this thing with Seth Rollins. And he finally got to cut a promo. And he said that Rollins had a vision of him being the face of the WWE for 20 years. And he has a vision of a WWE without Sami Zayn, which I thought was funny. Interestingly enough, how is he ever going to be the face of WWE for 20 years if he has to stay in the shadow of Seth Rollins? And then he has no aspirations of doing anything else, just being in the shadow of Seth Rollins. You need to fix that. That's a hole in the character, right? So then he talks about not liking Sami Zayn. Doesn't like his beard. Doesn't like his music. Doesn't like the people singing his music. Says Sami Zayn has no athletic ability. Doesn't go to the gym. Which sounds like Scott Steiner possessing Bron Breakker. He was like 2 seconds off of calling him pasty and fat, right? So I thought this was probably one of the better Bron Breakker promos. So Sami Zayn is involved with 3 feuds currently. And they mention this in their promo segment, that he wants to deal with his injured ribs. He also wants to deal with Karrion Kross and get revenge on him, but he's got to fight Bron Breakker tonight. And he goes out there And Cross attacks him in the aisleway. Gets a huge pop for attacking him in the aisleway, which kind of takes the fun out of wrestling. Because the crowd loves this shit. They're chanting, "We want Cross." Cross has a pipe. He hits Sami Zayn in the rib cage with the pipe. Sami Zayn collapses. He's clutching his gut. He's doing his best to try to sell this thing. Look, Sami Zayn is very much Bryan Danielson. And that's how I tolerate Sami Zayn. Otherwise, I will be talking as bad about him as I do about his fat friend. But Sami Zayn, to me, he looks like the kind of person he is. When they try to present Sami Zayn as being Superman, that's when I get agitated. When they present Sami Zayn as an underneath guy who fights and scratches and claws his way through these matches, he's incredibly tricky, he's smart, he's tactical, that sort of stuff, I can get into that. That's more interesting for me. When they book him as he's going to just go in there and just beat up fucking Bron Breakker, that doesn't make sense. And they were doing that at one point in time. That was agitating. That was very agitating. But in this position, this is good, but you got the crowd getting the wrong response. The crowd is now chanting, "We want Cross." And I'm like, but your favorite babyface is in a heap on the floor. We want Cross. And of course, the "we want Cross" thing is polarizing because for some people it's just whoever WWE is not interested in pushing, the fans want. And then there is that legitimate Karrion Kross fandom. And this is all they got, though. There was no Cross promo or anything like that. And then they didn't even give Cross the benefit of putting Sami Zayn out. Sami Zayn being who he is and wrestling being what it is, they allowed him to wrestle anyway. So he wrestles Bron Breakker. And he doesn't technically wrestle him. Bron Breakker just destroys him. But it took forever, He speared him 3 times. One of them was a mid-air spear. The referee at no point in time discussed or even considered stopping the match. Bron Breakker charged from around the ring and speared him again on the floor. And then put him in the ring and speared him again to get the 3 count. Complete decimation for Bron Breakker. It took something from Bron because of what Cross did. And you should not have done that. You probably should have had Cross attack him afterwards with the pipe. I think that probably would have been better, right? But then they did something that I thought was fairly interesting. They had Bron Breakker actually be upset that Karrion Kross attacked Sami Zayn first. He said, "Now people gonna think I can't do it myself. They're gonna think, it was him." I was like, okay, that's good. That's something that you really can put into the character. That Bron Breakker wants to be the guy that put out Sami Zayn. He don't want Cross to get no clout off that. But what's done is done. Maybe they'll try to do something slick and they'll try to turn Cross babyface in a feud with Bron Breakker. But I don't know. It's interesting, but I don't see why we even consider that. When you want Sami Zayn to be your underneath babyface, he needs to actually get heat, and none of these guys are actually getting heat. The crowd thinks that they're cool. They think Cross is cool. They think Bron Breakker is cool, and Sami Zayn is a dork. So spear him again, Bron. It's like, it's hard watching wrestling like that. The Fight Forever crowd, the one more time crowd, the get the tables, that crowd. You guys have no idea how you're ruining wrestling. Just no earthly idea. By denying heat. Like, you're not playing into the show at that point. You're telling everybody who's watching that it's bullshit. Oh yeah, I love Sami Zayn. That's why I want you to hit him with the pipe again. I love Sami Zayn. That's why I want you to spear him again. No. But that's that. Okay. Bronson Reed, he cut a promo as well. He claimed that he gave Seth Rollins 6 tsunami splashes and earned his respect, and now he's going to do the same thing to Jey Uso that he did to Seth Rollins. And I'm sitting here like, why would Seth Rollins be okay with this guy talking about, I'm going to do to you what I did to him? It's like, oh, what? You're going to beat him up and then join his team? That's stupid. If you can beat his ass, why are you on his side? I don't know. Anyway, they had Jey Uso versus Bronson Reed. The match didn't even really start before Bronson Reed threw a chair at Jey Uso's head. And then he gave him a couple of tsunami splashes after the match. The idea is they're going to destroy Jey Uso and destroy Sami Zayn. Again, when will the stakes actually be raised in this story? It all feels flat. Like it's going to be the same thing next week or the next same thing in 2 weeks that it was 2 weeks ago. You know, stories need to have a switch point. You know, like what they call angles in wrestling. In stories, they're inflection points. You know, these are the parts of the story where the story moves forward. The big problem with modern day WWE with what Triple H is doing, and sometimes Vince will pull the trigger on things too soon, is that he takes too long to do things. You know, like there needs to be some real motion on these shows to get people to watch them. You got folks trying to be super fans on Twitter, and you could tell it's really fake. They're really excited about this entire week. Like, what the fuck are you excited about? Nothing's going to happen on Raw because they got Saturday night's main event. Nothing's going to happen on NXT because they have Great American Bash this weekend. Nothing's going to happen on SmackDown because they have Saturday night's main event. And then nothing of note is really going to happen at Saturday night's main event because nothing of note ever happened at Saturday night's main event. And then the Evolution show is going to be completely slapped together. It's going to be a papier-mâché TV show, basically. And you might get some stuff out of Great American Bash, and you might get some stuff out of Evolution, but not much. I think we can pretty much guess what is likely to happen at Evolution. And the only thing that could really be a surprise is Naomi cashing in the Money in the Bank. That's it. Other than that, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen once Jade gets the belt, which I'm pretty sure is going to happen. So there's nothing to be excited about this entire week. You know, NXT might surprise us and do something, but I doubt it. The only other thing that happened on the show was they dragged out El Grande Americano to wrestle Dragon Lee. Okay? So this is obviously Ludwig Kaiser. Michael Cole was on commentary talking about how he's a completely different guy. He's taller. He doesn't have the tattoos. Yada, yada, yada. They have a match. Kaiser is not a great luchador. He's okay. He's not great. He puts the metal plate in the mask, headbutts Dragon Lee and pins him. The internet has a meltdown because once again, a real luchador has lost to a phony luchador. And Kaiser deserves better. And Dragon Lee deserves better. And I hate this character. The same argument they've been having since April when it comes to this gimmick. People don't get over things on the internet. They just hold on to them forevermore. I think that the match was just pointless. All right. It seemingly doesn't really further any angle outside of the El Grande Americano angle. But now that we know that Chad Gable's got to have shoulder surgery, he's going to be gone for a while. So how many of these matches is Kaiser going to wrestle? He's going to wrestle like the rest of the year like this? And then go where? Is he going to win the Intercontinental title like this? Probably not. He's going to become a tag team champion like this? Probably not. So what's the end game here? The end game has to be he's got to put the mask on the line and lose it, right? And if he's unmasked and then they bring in a new El Grande Americano and say he wasn't the real one, this is the real one, then that could be fun, that could be interesting, but that does not seem like something that Triple H is willing to do. This is an idea I pitched like last week or a couple weeks ago, where if you keep switching out El Grande Americano, that could be fun, you know? But you have to do things like him losing and getting his mask taken or getting his mask snatched off and he has to run away and all that sort of stuff. Those are the fun things you can do with this character to make it interesting. Him working full matches and beating luchadors he's been doing that for a while now. What's the next angle here? You were gifted this opportunity with the Chad Gable injury to do something special. And we just went right back to what we usually do, which is he's putting the metal plate in the mask. Okay. Just nothing changes. We're just going to keep going running the same play. I would say, look, I wouldn't even have Kaiser continue to wrestle this style. Wrestle your style under the mask and surprise everybody by not being a traditional luchador. That way, when you change up whoever's under the mask, you're changing how he's going to work. So the person doesn't even know who they're going to be wrestling, you know? And even you can even find a real luchador like Berto or Angel Garza and have them be El Grande Americano once or twice, you know, just for shits and giggles. You can do something fun with this character. But we've already seen the loaded mask gimmick. We've seen that a lot. It's not 1986 where, you know, these guys are loading up their boots or sliding, you know, stuff in their mask and you can just do this week after week after week after week after week after week. No, it's not the same. This shit is boring, bro. You have to, at some point, move forward. At some point, a referee needs to look and see that this guy is hiding metal in his trunks somewhere. You know, WWE is really strange like that because William Regal got a reputation for cheating, and they would slowly but surely try to figure out how is he going to cheat this time. Is he going to have the brass knuckles in his boots? Are they going to be in his knee pads? Is he going to be in his trunks? He's going to hide them outside the ring. That kind of stuff. That's smart. That furthers the story. And then, you know, you could have these things blow up in his face where the referee finds the brass knuckles and all that. This has been going on for months. And nobody's going to check that this guy's got metal in his tights ever? Come on. Get real. And only thing other than that, Dominic Mysterio still can't wrestle, so he got a get well soon cake from AJ Styles. He also got an altar. There's like a voodoo altar there for Liv Morgan, which was pretty funny. But he got this cake because AJ Styles is waiting for him to get well so they can wrestle. And that has some decent comedy where, you know, Dominic running around with his doctor's note saying he can't work. But, you know, the sickos are very hurt by the idea that AJ Styles, I guess, is going to stay with WWE until the end of his career. They were already fantasy booking him against Swerve and Will Ospreay and come on, Uncle Allen, join the cult. Look, I think these guys should take the hint. If he didn't join the last time, why would he join the next time? I don't know. Plus, you know, I think that AJ enjoys his time in WWE and he sees, like, he could probably make a ton of money in AEW. No doubt about it. Just for a 1-year run in AEW, he'd probably make a whole lot of money. And if I was AJ Styles, I would consider it. Literally. But I think he just signed a 1-year extension with WWE. He's probably going to do a retirement tour as well next year, similar to John Cena's. There's going to be a whole bunch of retirement tours happening now. But the AEW fans are really hurt about this. Their hearts are crushed by AJ Styles staying in WWE and working with Dominic Mysterio and not wanting to work with Will Ospreay and Swerve and working with the Young Bucks again. Go work with Kenny Omega again. Been there, done that, and did it when he was younger and more athletic than he is now. So go watch that stuff. Anyway, Raw was mid. It's a mid show. I wouldn't say it was bad, but weeks and weeks of nothing happen is very tough to sit through. And it's also tough to care about. It's also tough to talk about. I don't know why people favor this really boring product, but they do. And some people actually like this product the way that it is now, and I can't complain. You know, it's not my favorite flavor of ice cream, but maybe it's yours. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.